How are you, dear students? Today, we will be dealing with another lesson. I hope that you are all safe and you are all ready. Before we proceed with the lesson, let us read the different objectives. At the end of the lesson, the learners should be able to first, identify the different advanced organizers or textual aids. Second, use advanced organizers or textual aids in understanding a text. Third, determine the effect of textual aids like advanced organizers, titles, nonlinear illustrations, and others on the understanding of a text. Based from the video presented to you, please answer the puzzle. I will give you a minute for this. Thank you for answering the puzzle. You did a great job. Textual aids can be used, of course, to understand the text. Later on, we will be dealing with the myth entitled Daedalus and Icarus. As what I have mentioned a while back, we will be dealing with myth and how are we going to use textual aids to understand the story. So first, let us answer what is a myth. It is an ancient story created to explain natural events. Gods, goddesses, and heroes are among the characters in myths. In addition to explaining events in nature, some myths also present a lesson to live or serve as a warning to follow society's rules. I hope that you are still there and I hope that you are enjoying our lesson. So we will be dealing with the myth entitled Daedalus and Icarus by Nick Pontikis. Daedalus and Icarus is basically a myth. Okay? It discusses adventures and mistakes of heroes or characters in the said story. So myth is an ancient story created to explain natural events, just like what I have mentioned a while back. And again, gods and goddesses and heroes are among the character in myths. In addition to explaining events in nature, some myths also present a lesson to live or serve as a warning to follow society's rule. So let's say, for example, you can get lessons from the said story, Daedalus and Icarus, and later on, you are going to explain or write the lessons that you have gathered from the said story. So I hope that you are ready. Before we read the story Daedalus and Icarus, let us get the synonym and antonym of the following words on the left side. So the choices will be on the right side. So we have harmonize, collide, coinciding, rise, deep, unforgiving, disjoint, safe, comfortless, and merciful. So I will give you time for this. Okay, it's reading time. So I will be reading the story. Please get your modules and read it with me. Daedalus and Icarus. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there lived a talented artist. His name was Daedalus. He used his art to make buildings and temples. He was probably the finest architect of his time. King Minos invited Daedalus to the lovely island of Crete. The king wanted Daedalus to build a maze, a labyrinth, as a home for the king's beloved pet, the Minotaur. The Minotaur was a horrible monster with the head of a bull on a human body. The king loved that awful monster and wanted him to have a lovely home. Daedalus was a bit amazed at the king's choice of pet, but a job was a job. Daedalus planned to make the maze a challenge, so complicated that anyone who entered it would be lost until rescued. That way, the king would be happy, the monster would be contained, and the people would be safe. Daedalus had no doubt he could design such a maze. He really was a fine architect. Daedalus brought his young son Icarus with him. He was sure the child would enjoy swimming and playing with the other children on the island. Both Daedalus and Icarus were happy they had come. King Minos was happy with his maze. It was peaceful and pleasant on the island. Daedalus was in no hurry to leave. One day, a group of Greek children sailed to the island. The next day, they sailed safely away, taking with them the king's lovely daughter, and leaving behind them one dead Minotaur. King Minos was beside himself with grief. He did not believe anyone could have entered the maze and escape alive without help from someone. Most probably, help from the man who had designed the maze in the first place. Actually, the children did have help, and not from Daedalus. But that's another myth. King Minos punished the innocent Daedalus by keeping him and his young son Icarus prisoners on the island of Crete. Daedalus tried to think of ways to escape. One day, Daedalus noticed birds flying overhead. It gave him an idea. Wings. He needed wings. Daedalus began to gather all the bird's feathers he could find. He glued them together with wax. When 2 pairs of wings were ready, he warned his young son not to fly too close to the sun. or the wax would melt. Daedalus fastened the wings to their arms. They flapped their wings and took to the sky. They left the island of Crete far behind them. Water sparkled beneath them as far as they could see. The sky was blue. The breeze was brisk, more than enough to keep them in the air. It was glorious. Icarus flew higher and higher. He flew so high that before he knew what was happening, the sun had begun to melt the wax on his wings. Icarus felt himself falling. He flapped his arms faster and faster, but it was no use. Poor Icarus plunged into the water and drowned. Sadly, Daedalus continued alone. Okay, did you learn something from the story? Alright, so let us answer the comprehension test. Please write your answers on your paper. First question. Who invited Daedalus to the lovely island of Crete? Is it Icarus, Minotaur, or King Minos? Next, why did King Minos invite Daedalus to the island of Crete? First, to see the beauty of Crete, or to build a maze as home for the king's beloved pet, or is it to design his castle? Please write your answer. Third question. How did they call the maze built by Daedalus? Is it labyrinth, puzzle, or buccal bridge? How did Daedalus come up with the idea of escaping from the labyrinth? Is it by putting up a ladder, by climbing the wall, or by noticing birds flying overhead? How did Icarus die in the end? Is it he was eaten by the Minotaur? Or he was killed by King Minos? Or is it he was drowned in the sea? Congratulations for finishing the comprehension questions. I know that you got the right answers and you did a great job. But before we end, of course, I have here the different tasks given to you, and it is also written on your modules, wherein you are going to use the different textual aids in order for you to further understand the myth entitled Daedalus and Icarus. Task number 1. Compare and contrast the two characters using Venn diagram. So we have the words on the left side. We have artistic, loving, courageous, multifaceted, talented, enthusiastic, affectionate, stubborn, and goofy. So are those words describing Daedalus or Icarus? So you can use those words in answering the first task. Second task. Arrange the sentences according to their proper sequence using the flow chart. Again, the sentences are found under. So this task is also connected with task number 2. So arrange the sentences according to their proper sequence using the flow chart. Okay, so before we end our lesson, so again, we read the story Daedalus and Icarus, which is a myth. So we have Daedalus as the father and Icarus, which is the son. So basically, it teaches us that we should have to listen to the advice of our parents, right? Since Icarus did not listen to his father, So what happened to him? Yes, you are right. So he died in the story because the wax melted. Okay, because he flew really near to the sun. So again, we should have to listen to the advice of our parents, most especially if it is for our own good. And if you have further questions, if something is uncertain to you, if something is unclear, just message me, PM me, private message me, or you can message me in our group chat. So once again, this is Mom Love, your English teacher. So see you again on our next online lesson. Thank you and keep safe, everyone.